Alrighty, so let's take a look at what happened overnight. There seems to be a pretty calm overnight session, nothing crazy going on. Market has found itself pretty range bound. There is no crazy news out there, no crazy tweets or anything like that as far as I can tell. And the market hasn't really reflected any of it. So, looking at the news, we have basically nothing going on today. It's basically a no news Monday, August 20th, and the middle of the summer. So I guess you can usually expect range bound boring trading when that happens. But sometimes we've been proven wrong, right? So let's not lose hope just yet. And no news tomorrow either. So we have 2 slow news days to get started for this week. Looking at the popping on the ES. And taking a look at that guy, the ES held its gain overnight. If they split out K here from Friday, that's kind of the move out of the middle towards the end. That was the news about the Chinese trade delegation, which came out, and they that's not what I wanted to do. Like that, it created a move out of the middle and moved the markets higher, and they held that gain. So I believe the market has some hope about that Chinese trade delegation may be able to accomplish something. But the market is showing some strength. It's holding the gains from Friday, and it's generally pointed higher. The way it's at, you see the volume point of control is above the point of control. It means gives you a long skewing to the upside. So we'll be looking for that. I managed to delete one of my levels. I'm going to have one level right up here, like that. All right, so that's one of the resistance areas we need to get through in the morning to be able to trade higher. So I'm thinking the ES, if you look at the F1 as well, that's our capital flow chart, is pointed higher. It made kind of a move out of the middle from the 28.39.40 area, and is trading towards the highs. So the capital flow chart is pointed higher, and we also have our exchange member type chart pointing higher. So it's a good sign. Therefore, structure is telling us that they're going to be either sideways or higher today. So I'll be looking for a retest of the highs here or higher, and we'll see what they can do with it. If they can't bust this level, the 28.59.60 area to 63 area, then I believe we can have a shot of trading lower again. So we just have to see how they open the day session or where they want to take it. But that's what I would be expecting for today. Range bound trading on the ES with an upward bias. The first out of the shoot, testing the 28.60 to 63 area, and we'll see if it holds. Then we can start trading lower again. If it doesn't, then we are pretty clear up to 28.70, 73 here. All right, so now at this point here, we start, if you trade higher, we start getting into price exploration again. Then we'll see where we find basic resistance for taking it higher. But you can tell, we are 2,900 is coming up, right? It's not that far away. We need a really good day, and we'll be right there. So that is starting to become an attractor. Anyway, so that's it for the ES to get started this morning. All right, let's take a look at the bond. And when it trades like this, going back to ES, when it trades like this range bound, if it doesn't start busting these levels, then we always have our mean green line, our mode, first and second standard deviation lines to trigger off if we want to do more short-term scalping type trades or inside out trading. Or I should say outside in trading. Okay, so cycling over to bond. Let me see. The bond is holding its gains, basically haven't done either. We just been trading in range bound this morning, this overnight. And pulling up the F1. Remember, it's pointed higher on the F1. Let me see, where are you? There you are. All right, so the bond is pointed higher. on the F1, and we've been talking about this test of 45.07.10. It's getting it's inching closer to that level, and we're gonna. It's the attractor, and they're trying to get it there. So I believe they're gonna get there sooner or later. The profile can tell us that we are heading there. It's not exactly when. So I believe we're heading there, and maybe we see a test of 15.16 here, test the high of that breakout from July 19th. So the capital flow chart on the ES is pointing us higher. Looking at the F2, it's range bound. So we are in good shape for range bound with a higher bias. So we're looking for retest of the high or higher to test this area here. We are so close to it. And if we get through that, the next level up would be the breakout point at 16 to 20 up here. So that's what I'm looking for this morning. They can't bust this area, 45.01 to 404, Friday's high of 03, then we can start trading back lower again. And then we may see a test of the lows at 14 to 16 from Friday's session. So that's what I'm looking for to get started this morning. We'll see which direction they want to take it. It's opens in 5 minutes, starting to trade higher in being the pre-open. So the bond is range bound to higher as well, and if they can take it higher, then it's going to be either range bound or a potential test of the lows here. But if to get started this morning, I'm looking at range bound to higher prices. All right, so that's the bond, and let's take a look at the oil. Flip over to that chart. Oil and gold. All right, so what did oil do? Oil basically stayed in a range and hasn't really busted out a whole lot. We had from Friday a probe up. It came up to 65.75 roundabout. They held the line, and it's been trading down and been trading in this range ever since. So as you can see, when you fold this together, you'll get a nice V formation. And if you then pull back down the F1, the capital flow chart for oil, what do you see? Well, you see it's pointed lower, right? So the whole thing has been pointed lower for a while, and they've been building value in this area here from 65.75 roundabout down to 64.50. The attractor is going to be 63.50. That's where I think it's heading. You probably need a piece of news to get through there. We have the low volume area at 64, right about 64, right above it, which is most likely going to stop activity. Remember, low volume areas stop activity, and high volume areas attract it. So oil is pointed lower on the capital flow side, and it's range bound on the F2. So we're looking at range bound to lower prices on oil for now. In other words, I'm looking for retest of the lows or lower. So I'm looking for, if you get some early strength, you can set up a nice short. We just have to see which side I want to trade it off from after the shoot this morning. So that is it for oil, range bound to lower prices. Unless we get a tweet or some other piece of news which changes everything, and we'll have to be cognitive to that. The structure tells you what the structure tells you, and then you have news you have to take into account on top of that. And then looking at gold, gold has basically done not much of anything. It's moving higher, and if you look at a capital flow chart on gold, you see something interesting. They were stuck here at 1180.82 for a while, and then been inching higher after that. And if you look at, you see this single print gap here on the way down when they busted 1200. So I believe they are trying to close that gap. And so I'm looking at higher prices for gold in the short term here to close that gap and do a test of 1200 before they can trade it lower again or take it lower again. So the capital flow chart has us pointed lower and the F2 has us pointed higher, which is a so they are not they are diverging from each other, which just tells us we are in building value, or it's not a clear shot in one direction or the other. So I'm looking for a retest of 1200 here. That's what I think is going to be happening. And if they can hold the 1200 as resistance, then I think we are trading back down again. So we'll see where to take it. The London session made new highs on this from Friday, and right now it's trading down a bit. So maybe some early weakness to get long and see how far they can take it on the upside. But I'm looking for that retest on the at 1200 now. It looks like what is in the cards. And if they can't bust that, we can trade lower again. Now, as always, if they can't bust, they had to get through the 95 to 96 level and 98, 99 here. Those two areas we marked up first. So if they can't do that, then we're not getting that much strength yet. But I think over a period of time here, the 1200 test is in the cards. We haven't really tested that yet. Already? So if they can't get to the first two levels, we are sure that we're going to probably trade back down into this range again. But we'll see if they can take out the 1195, 96 area here and actually make a test of 1200. So that's what I'm looking for. Already? So that's it for gold. It's trading down. It's right in our first area of support now. We'll see if that area holds. I could be setting up a nice long. If not, then we'll be looking for our next support area down here at 1188, 89. And if they bust that, then we're back into this range again. And that test of 1200 is not going to happen, at least for a bit. But I'm looking for that test of 1200, and if we get it, we can determine if we have a good shot at trading lower again. So that was it for oil and gold. So I'm looking for higher prices on gold today, range bound to higher prices to retest that 1200 level. We'll see if we get that. And let me cycle back to the ES and the bond charts. And we are looking at the bond trading a little bit higher. The ES is still stuck in its range. So we'll leave it here, and then we'll cycle back again at 11:30 when the London market closes and take a look at see what happened. All right, guys. It's 11:30 Eastern. London has closed. And let's take a look and see what has happened so far. Hopefully you're still awake, paying attention. And I don't know if anyone put on a trade or not, but we'll see. We'll take a look at what has been happening. No news per se to worry about. The ES has pretty much been staying sideways. So it's range bound, no direction. So basically, we thought that this morning was going to be range bound to higher prices on the ES, looking for a retest of the 228.60 to 63 level. But no such thing so far. So as range bound, it's like watching paint dry. So for you guys which are trading range bound, it's basically inside out trading, or sorry, outside in trading. keep saying that wrong, but it's outside in trading. So what you're looking for is basically the edges. And if you can't get them on our levels marked up on the F2, you can work the edges you see on the first and second standard deviation as projected out of the mean green line here, which is your volume weighted mean. So you're still staying within the initial balance, not doing much of anything, bouncing in between the edges. And we have a little run up in the morning, not even strong enough to get us up to test the highs of the prior session, so even the overnight session. So that's where we are, range bound. I still have a higher price forecast. In other words, I'm expecting a retest of the high before we can really start trading lower. So I'm looking for that still. The cumulative delta, just telling us that we are net long on the big players. And those are guys trading, let me see, change in indicators. These are the guys trading 50 lots and above. All right. So that's the bound for the ES. Not much more to say about that. Range bound. So I still keeping my bias to the high side in place. All right. Looking at the bond did pretty much what we expected it to do, right? If you're looking at the bond from an F1 perspective, the capital flow side, we are looking at the retest of that level here, the 45.16 to 18. We had our first level was 5 to 9. We got that, and now we talked this morning about potentially retesting the start of that move, which is 15 to 20 or 16 to 20, and that's where we are right now. So now this would be a great spot for a failure to occur. So you're looking for retest failure in this area here, and I will set up a nice short. Now I put on a trade on the bond here early on, and these are live trades, real money trades. And let me talk you through what I thought there. So we were talking about this morning a retest of the 5 to 9 area, right? So 5 to 9, high volume node, and a tractor. We got there in short order this morning, and when it runs up like that and then stalls, I had one bar, the second bar stalled, and towards the close of that bar, I was looking at a delta chart which has a lot of selling at exactly that price level, a lot of selling, no buying, and at that point I put on a short and got filled. And then I sat there for maybe 2-3 minutes until I saw a bunch of buying kick in. And then, I don't know if you saw me put on that chart here, but it was this chart here showing big time traders. And I'm looking at this area, I believe right, where is it? I missed that maybe. Early on this morning, it's this area right here, right? So you're looking at this area right here, bright and early in the morning, right? And you're seeing all this buying occurring. And basically, at that point, this didn't look like that when I put on the trade. But once it started looking like that, I figured that this is not going to work out the way I thought. And the trade I was taking was basically the first time you get to a high volume area, you're expecting a bounce. You're expecting an initial price rejection and a little bounce down. We got a little bounce down like that one, but that was not worth the effort, you know. If I had been stayed in that trade, I would have been 1 tick or 2 tick. My target was down here at 3 or 4. I think I had that 3 initially, and I would never have gotten even close to that. So when I saw that buying, I decided to scratch the trade and not stay in it. And that turned out to be a good call because it just kept trading higher from there. So this would have been turned into a potential loser or a scratch, but the way I trade most likely would have been a loser. I would have probably sat in that trade then. But once you're in doubt, if things doesn't work the way you want it to, and you have to be nimble if you're going to step in front of it like that, you know. So in this case, when it runs up like that, that's not the totally comfortable trade to take. Let me show you that again. So when it runs up like that and then stop, you're not stepping in front of it. Is a fairly risky setup. So the only reason you're doing it is because you know you're coming to an area of high volume, and we already marked it up as an area of interest to get a short on, right? So at this point, you're just operating on a little bit less information. You don't really have a failure, but you're stepping in front of it based on the actual selling at that time. And as you notice, I don't really pay attention to the delta chart until I get close to getting into a trade or I'm in a trade. So at this point, we basically, it was right about here. I scratched that trade and that was it. Hopefully that was useful, kind of walk through, but you have to be nimble when you're stepping in front of a train, just to make sure that if it doesn't stop the way you expect it to, then get out of the way pretty quick. Then we got another run of the upside, and we are looking at now, we are testing the 16 to 20 area. And that was the initial move. That's an even better setup. So if we'll see we actually had a potential retest failure here, which I didn't pay attention to, but it has 3 bars here trading, and probably a fair amount of selling going on there too. So if you look at that, how it looks right now in the big guys, it's our 20 month and above traders, and they're just trading the heck out of it. So they're selling a lot. They started selling into it right there. They start selling more, and now we're getting some price rejection. I'm still waiting for another retest of the high before I'm really ready to get short there, but you know. So if I get another retest of that high at 16, maybe even a tick higher, then I may put on a short. We'll see what happens. All right, so that's the bond. Hopefully that was useful information. Got some information out of it, or some knowledge out of it. Switching over to gold and oil. You see right there. Oil has done not much of anything, right? It's been trading in a range bound. You see this big B here? They had a probe up here earlier on from Friday. Today, in overnight session, we went sideways. Today, it opened. We probed higher. We busted the recession high. We didn't really get it to test the second level up here, and it failed. We're back into the middle again. So range bound to lower prices on oil still. These movements to the upside is more exchange member probing the edges to see if they can take it in one direction or the other. But the capital flow chart, the F1, is showing us is pointing lower. The F2, the one we are on right now, is pointing lower, or range bound to lower. So we are looking at range bound to lower prices on oil. All right, and looking at the F4 here, I don't know, you have some trading opportunities here if you're trading. I'm not going to point them out. If you trade oil, you have a probably good shot at some of these. You basically have to trade the edges on the first and second standard deviation here. A nice retest fail, typical retest failure setup up here. You know, when you're hitting the second standard deviation, extending the range a bit, you're retesting it once, you're failing. So if you were watching the auction chart around here, you may have a potential setup for a trade. Just depends on how you trade and what you're looking for. This was not at a specific level, it's between 2 levels. So I mean, if you weren't taking that, that would be perfectly understandable. As remember, what we're looking for is idea, the idea basically range bound to lower prices. You're looking for a level. We were not at the level here. You're looking for a setup and a trigger. So you're missing the level here at this point. So you may not have taken that trade or being prepared for it. So with that, that's pretty much what I have to say about oil. It's still range bound to lower prices on oil. And gold, that's a disappointment, isn't it? Look at that, just doing nothing. Absolutely sitting there. I'm still expecting a test of the highs. It hasn't failed. It hasn't gone higher either. Just range bound. And I'm going to stick to my forecast of a test of 1200 is in the works before we can really start trading lower again. So not much more to say about gold. It's just going sideways. This would be typical outside-in type trading. You see the bouncing of the first standard deviation back and forth. So I wouldn't expect anyone to really trade this unless you're really nimble and you're really putting on orders right at the edges here. But it's just not a lot of range to work with. So that's it for gold. And as I said, not much to say about that. I'm still expecting the retest of the high there before we can start trading lower. But both the capital flow chart, the F1 on gold, as well as the exchange member chart, is showing lower prices, a range bound to lower prices. All right. So that's it for me for now, I will be back at 1:30 again, and we'll see what happened, and we'll do our analysis from there. Alrighty, guys, it's 1:30 Eastern. Let's go take a look at our chart to see what's happened so far. The ES has been doing pretty much nothing. It's been staying in that range, sideways, range bound, and it's right now heading up to test the highs. And it looks like they want to do an actual decent test on the highs now. Third time up, and it's got a little bit buying behind it. So right now we're looking at testing the highs. Remember this morning, I believe we talked about retesting this area here and see if they can bust that. And if they bust the area about 28, 59, 60, 61, even up to 63, that area, general area, then we can trade higher. So we are right there now testing it. We haven't taken out and tested the session highs yet, but I think it's coming up in short order here. We are in the post lunch hour now, so we should be able to see some action. So we'll watch it, but right now we're testing the highs on the ES. And that's what we thought we would do. And once we know if it's going to hold or not, we know if it's going to be trading higher or maybe retrace back a little bit. So we'll be watching this range and see how it plays out, and probably have an update at the 3:30 time frame. Looking at bonds, bonds has not retested the highs yet at 16. I was looking for a retest of that. I just folded back the D split I had before. And now we see how nice this P formation is. And you know, a P formation on the profile, that means retest the high or higher. So yeah, we are looking for a retest of 16 here. See if that's going to hold or not. If it holds, then we can potentially trade lower again. If not, then we had the next level up is going to be probably the buck 145.24 to 28, and then the 46 handle. So that's where we're pointing at for the bond. Though I do believe it's the 16 to 20 area is a pretty strong area. I think it's going to have it's going to be proven to be pretty hard to bust through. So because right now, if you look at our capital flow chart on the bond, we are right here. We just tested the breakout point from that move on July 19th, and now we are. If we can't bust that and trade higher, then we are most likely going to go right back down to the 44.10, 44, 10, like 6 to 12 area, I would think. Around about here where they had a high volume. That's where they're going to be returning back to if they can't bust that high. All right? So that's it for the bond. Not much more to say about that right now. Range bound to higher prices on the bond is what we're expecting. And I'm still looking for a potential failure. If it gets too late, I won't put on the trade. But if it happens in a reasonable time frame, not too close to the end, then potentially be able to get short and see if you can get back to the middle here. Yeah. Ready. Let me see. Going over to oil and gold. Let me see. There we go. Oil has not been able to bust that level. They probed up. Remember we were talking about oil had to bust the area here about 65.75. They haven't been able to bust that area yet, so the F1 capital flow pointing lower. The F2 is still range bound, and we'll see if they can take that higher or not. My guess is that they haven't been able to take it higher, and now they're going to go down and test the lows. And at the end of the day, unless they can trade above 65.75, we probably have it's still pointed lower at that point. So it's range bound to lower on oil, even if it's trading at the high end of this range. All right, look at this. Look at this F4. How it comes up to this the second standard deviation, and just totally tanks all the way down, crosses the mean, and all the way down. That's a good move. At 65, that's a 50 tick move right there. Alrighty, so that's it for oil. Range bound to lower prices on oil still. We're stuck in the middle of a range. So we're going to be marking this up next time over. This is going to be a price area to look towards, 65.60. And on gold, we were looking at gold to close that gap on the up till 1200, right? You have these single prints which are begs to be retested. These guys right here. These are single prints we are looking for being retested, and I believe they're going to do a test of 1200. That's what we're looking for. And if they can't take out 1200, then we are looking at setting up a short for potentially another leg down. So right now, gold has been pushing higher. They busted the session highs. They haven't really done a lot more than that. They kind of failed taking it higher than that. So this will more be exchange member probing the edges. But we'll see if they can trade above this. The next leg up is going to be close to 1200. We need to get to 98, 99, and then we have the test of 1200. So somewhere around here, we're looking for a good failure, and then a potential setting up a short for a nice leg down. We will see how that whole thing develops. Remember, the profile tells you directionally where you're likely to go. It doesn't tell you how fast you're going to go there, okay? So it can take a day, it can take 2 days, it can happen this afternoon. You just never know. But that's the part of the profile you're going to have to learn how to live with. You know, it tells you structure-wise where you're heading and where you're likely to go, but as to the time frame, not so much. Alrighty, so I did a G-split here just to show you how it split out and start trading higher. So we'll see if they can hold these gains and maybe trade higher again or not. We will see, right? We'll watch it and trade what we see. Now, if they can't bust this one, this could be a short, and for now, a short to go back down and retest the 1991 area here. We have a mode down here, and it's the attractor for the day. So if they can't take out this area, 96 to 97, then we're probably heading back down again and trading in the mid part of this range. And I will see what they do in the overnight. We will talk about that at 3:30. And yeah, summer trading in its glory, right? So yes, it's range-bound trading, outside-in trading. All right. And that's about it for me right now. We'll be back again at 3:30 and do a wrap-up, and then talk about what's going to happen in the overnight session. Alrighty, guys. It's 3:30 Eastern. Time for the wrap-up. See what happened today? If we look at the ES, we haven't really done much of anything. We are getting the retest of the session high. We took it out with a tick, and they're trading at the high, so they're trying to take it higher. But you know, they haven't really managed to do it yet. So if it fails here, we can start trading back down again. But we just have to see how that whole thing develops. But they are trying to take it higher. The mode has been moving up in the distribution, which implies higher prices. So we'll see how strong they are towards the end here. If they can't take it out, we may see a little sell-off here towards the close, but we're just going to have to see, right? But this area is key still. They haven't busted it yet. They just ticked up one tick above it. And that's it. That's it. So get a little bit more to go. But it looks strong, and I would expect the overnight session to make an attempt of busting this. I would not be surprised if they do that. We don't have any really bad news out there right now. The trade tariff thing and the trade China thing is just not impacting the market right now. It's kind of on hold based on the news which came out on Friday. So we'll see who comes up with that delegation, shows up, and if something positive comes out of it. If anything positive shows up in the news feed, I think the market is going to take a leg up. But right now, it's still moving higher, even if you have those uncertainties there. So it's a pretty strong market. So we'll leave it at that. We're expecting higher prices the way it's looking right now. Range bound to higher on the ES. Nothing has really changed on that. Right? Still have to wait for this area 2860 to 63 to be busted before we can really take a leg higher. So that's what we're expecting for the overnight. If they can't bust it, you can certainly trade down again. On the bond, it's showing strength. I got the retest of the high here. It's to the tick, and it was just what 13 contracts traded there or something like that, and maybe 95 contracts. Okay, 95 contracts traded there, and that was it. Well, no, they took it out with a tick. They took it out with a tick. Yeah, so it's only they took out that level with a tick, and it's 95 contract trade above it. That's what happened. And I was looking at actually shorting it here for a second. We had a big sell-off, and it didn't go anywhere. And I looked at it for a second. I figured, it may be a good short. Just put on an order, and I started looking at some more stuff, and I kind of chickened out of it. Because it's kind of building value up here. It's not really failing. It's just kind of chugging higher. And I chickened out of that trade. And it would have been this little dip down, come back up and trade again at the highs. And now it's failing a little bit. But, it looks like they're trying to take it higher. I watched the mode here go from 07 or 08 up till, you see how the mode jumped up from, on the F4, from, it was at 09 and jumped up to 14. So I'm thinking it's moving higher, so it all pointed higher, to be honest with you. So a little bit, that short was a bit iffy, and it was late in the day, so I decided not to go forward with it. Either which way, onwards to the next trade, right? So the bond is still pointed higher the way it looks. Both the F1 and the F2 are confirming each other, so we're going to be looking for higher prices. At least another retest of this area, 16 to 20. They've been testing it. They haven't been able to take it above 16, just one tick above 17, and that's it. So unless they can bust it higher now, pretty in short order, we're probably going to trade back down again. So I'm looking for a final attempt at 16 to 18, maybe in the overnight session. They may try to take it higher and then fail. So we may see the overnight session setting a high up here and then starting to trade back down again. And if it starts trading back down again, the attractor would be coming back into this range again, right here, where it's been sitting for a while. So we're looking at prices back down to 07 or 08 here. That's in a high volume attractor. And that would be the downside target if it starts trading lower. But as long as it keeps trading above this range here, the 45 handle, as long as it stays above there, it can still trade higher. So we are looking for higher prices as it stands now, and if they can take out the 16 to 20 area and starts trading back down again, then we are probably heading back down to the 44.06 to 08 area. All right. So that's the forecast for the bonds. Looking at oil and gold. There they are. You can see it's not much to look at on the F4 chart, but you see how oil has basically stabilized. It's still pointed a little bit on the up. It's pointed higher a little bit. It's skewed to the upside, I should say, but it hasn't really busted any specific area. So it's still range bound to lower prices is what we're going to call for the oil market. So the F1, the capital flow, is pointing down. The F2 is range bound right now, and I would expect another test on the overnight session of the highs, and maybe even trade up here to 65.75. And if we can't take it higher than that, then I think we're going to be trading lower again. So we'll see what happens in the overnight, but right now it looks like there may test of the highs in the works before they can start taking it lower again. But either which way, it's still range bound to lower prices on oil in the grand scheme of things. All right. And for gold, it looks like we're getting our test of 2000. I'm getting hopeful, right? I've been inching it higher. They're not giving up. They're pushing it. It's like a slow grind to the upside, right? So I'm looking for a test of 1200, a decent test of 1200 before we can start trading lower again. So In the short term, I'm looking for higher prices on gold to close that gap we showed you earlier on. And if they can't take out 1200 and trade above that, then I think we are going to head back down again. So that's what I think about gold right now, unchanged from the prior forecast, and it looks like we're getting some strength in it. Alrighty? Gold tends to move in the London session, so I mean, we'll see. Maybe we come in tomorrow morning and it's moved all the way up to 1200. You just never know, right? But that's about it for me today. I will switch it back to these guys. I'll be quiet and we'll come back in the morning and do this all over again. Remember, for tomorrow morning, we still don't have any news to talk about. Red Book at 8:55 is not going to do much. So tomorrow is also a non-news day, so we can probably expect more range-bound technical trading. We'll see. Sometimes we get these moves when you don't have news to push it. You get a repricing of assets. You also have potential news on the fundamentals. If something comes out in the world, then any news piece of news comes out tweet-wise or anything like that could also move the market significantly. So you just never know. You have to watch for that, and we'll take a look at that bright and early in the morning. So that's it for me, and I will see you back in the morning.